Well, welcome, ladies. I'm so excited about this session and everybody. I'm so glad you could join us. We've had a packed house all morning with folks, so this is super exciting. Um, and well, Justin, if you would like, do you want to do the introduction to the course for everybody, just like what the course is about? And then we can let everyone else enter the panel. They can introduce themselves. We don't have to read their bio. I think that they would much rather introduce themselves in a less formal way.
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to let you do that because you don't have that in your spreadsheet here for me to announce what it is. So,
Well, I have it right here. So this panel discussion, which I'm super excited about, is the resilient responder, women leading wellness in 911. So we're going to talk about several different things today in roundtable with Dr. Michelle Lilly, Dr. Julianne Davis, Laura Earhart, and Desiree Arnold. We're so excited that you guys joined us. And if you don't mind, maybe we could start with Julianne because you're over here to my left, and you guys can just if you don't mind just giving a little bit about yourself, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sure. Thank you for having me. My name's Dr. Davis. I am a therapist in North Alabama. I don't know where everybody else is, but I have been working specifically with first responders, so dispatch, police, fire, EMS, corrections, for about the last 3.5 years. I developed North Alabama's first like comprehensive wellness plan that's now a policy for a lot of different agencies. And I am kind of my nickname is the mental health chick. So I'm kind of the like department mental health professional for about 18 different police, fire, 911 centers, things like that. So this is just what I love to do.
Thank you. Michelle.
Yeah, I do similar stuff to Dr. Davis. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist in Illinois. I work with a number of different first responding agencies, and that's my part-time clinical practice. Do consulting in for first responders and their families, or first responding agencies. Sorry, when they're having difficulties, do organizational assessment, and then sometimes come in and help people do team building or critical conversations. My full-time gig is as a professor of clinical psychology at Northern Illinois University, and there is in that role is where I've done a lot of the research connected to first responders, including studying mental and physical health and dispatchers since 2009, which is crazy. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, lady. Laura, you're up next, please, ma'am.
Hello. First, Kelly, thanks for having me. I'm very thankful and excited to be here with Michelle, Juliana, and Desiree, and all of you watching. My name is Laura Earhart. I am currently the Certification and Training Program Manager for the State 911 Board in Alabama. However, I was a telecommunicator full time for 23 years prior to taking my role here, and I actually still work part time at my agency just to kind of keep my eyes on what everyone is going through, sitting in the seat, since part of my job is making sure they're taken care of in certain ways. And so yeah, I've worked in the industry for a really long time.
Well, thank you for joining us. I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, time flies. Like Michelle was like, since 2009. Oh my gosh, time flies.
That's isn't it? Well, Desiree, last but not least.
Good afternoon, everyone. Desiree Arnold from Atlanta. I am the executive director for the Atlanta 911 Center. Very grateful to be on this panel with these ladies. As you stated, time flies. I've been with Atlanta 911 for 27 years. So I am on the countdown to 30 and figure out what I'm going to do in my next life. So wellness has really been a center point for our leadership team. So I'm very grateful to be a part of this panel. So thank you.
Thank you for joining us. All right, you guys. So just a little bit about what we're going to do here, just for all of the attendees, is There's just some questions, and I'm going to kind of moderate the conversation. But these ladies are, oh, they're pros at this. I almost said old pros, but I should not say that, right? With all these years, because I'm older. So these ladies are pros at these panel discussions. So, but I'll throw out some of these questions, and we'll just get started if everybody's ready to get this party started. All right. So the first question, and anybody wants to take the lead on this, just go for it. So many of us spend our days pouring into others, right? Our teams, our families, and our communities. What is one practice, mindset, or ritual that helps you refill your own cup?
I will answer that for me. Well, first of all, it's firstly some intentional time, quiet time for myself. The first thing I do in the morning is I wake up and thank the Lord for the breath in my lungs. I mean, we're waking up on the other side of the ground, so it's a great day to be alive. But then just spending some time for me in the Word, and then having music that just really that speaks to me, playing as I get ready for my day. But other things are doing things that remind me that work is not all work, and that that I am a person outside of my career. And I think people in public safety a lot get wrapped up in the identity of being a 911 telecommunicator or this or that. And I think it's so important for us to always remember that I'm a Laura before I am a 911 dispatcher. I'm Laura before I'm mom or whatever. And so doing things that are just for me remind me, it's not really escaping the work, but just reminding me of who I am and what's important to me. Just last week, I took a sporadic road trip by myself, 3 hours to watch a concert for myself, for an artist that I've just been listening to lately, and she just happened to be nearby at the Peanut Festival. Drove by myself, went to the concert by myself, had the best time, and just reinvigorated me, So doing things that are just for you, whether it's just listening to music and having a concert for one, or binging a TV show, or being creative, I think those are all really important to fill your cup.
That's
And I'll
amazing.
agree with Laura. I'm very intentional in the mornings about leaving early. Anyone that has to fight Atlanta traffic knows that I have plenty of time to spend time listening to music and thinking about everything but work. So I'm very intentional about that. Um, I have my own little ritual where before 12 is gospel, after 12 is hip hop, because I feel like when I leave work, I made it and I can now, listen to some hip hop music on the way home and fight traffic on the way home like I did on the way to work. And I also think another thing I'm very intentional about is having friends that are outside of this industry, not in public safety, not 911, not anything. So on weekends, I like to line dance. And so I go out and I line dance with my girlfriends, not a couples thing, just a girls thing. Every Friday is girls' night, and we get out and we line dance, and we don't talk about work because they don't know anything about what I do, and nobody's focused on anything about 911. We just go out and we de-stress and we have a good time.
I love that. I want to go line dancing.
Same.
Come on, Kelly.
I know. I love to line dance. I mean, I'm not just great at it, but it's a lot of fun. I think we did that at the Wonder Woman reception, Michelle. A bunch of us. You guys
Don't
were there.
remind me.
We
I
did
don't know
line.
that was quite line dancing, but okay. Yeah. I think it's a great question. I think I know that there's two things that I do to kind of preserve my mental health and wellness. Even though I've never worked as a first responder, I'm a trauma psychologist and have a lot going on and have little kids. Well, they're not that little anymore. They're 13, but I think there's two things that I always try to do. At the end of the day, I kind of reflect back and think, did I spend quality time with people that I loved? Right. I'm very focused on quality over quantity. And there are lots of times that I feel like you feel this pressure to like, I don't know, like go volunteer at the kids' school or go do something. And it's like, it's not even quality time. And so just really focusing on those moments that I spent really quality time with the people that I loved, even if the quantity was less than I would have liked. And that really orients me not only at the end of the day to be grateful for the time that I had, and then evaluate like maybe tomorrow I need to do things a little bit differently. So that's one. And then the other thing is that I approach my self-care very flexibly. So like sleep is something that I try very hard to never give up because I'm a very sleep sensitive person. So if I'm not getting enough sleep, I am kind of useless. However, sometimes that doesn't work. But I try to ask myself every morning, like, what today are you going to do to take care of yourself and not be rigid about it? Because I love to exercise. I love going to the gym, but sometimes like I just don't have time, right? So if that's that day, that's not going to work for me. What is something else that I can do to take care of myself? And so I approach my self-care in a very intentional way, but in a very flexible way. And I think sometimes people get very stuck in thinking that self-care for them has to look a certain way, or they just wait for self-care to happen. And we know that that doesn't really work. So those are two things that I do.
Okay, I guess I'll go next, and I feel like everybody took all my answers already. So, but I would very much like to agree. I mean, having a hobby, having friends outside of even okay, even for me as a mental health professional, having people who are friends outside of mental health. Like we don't have to talk about mental health all the time in our off time. Things like that are very important. And something that this is even kind of new to me. I mean, I struggled with this for a long time, but sometimes on the weekends when I'm home with my kids, I also have little kids. I have three little kids. I turn my phone off. Even if it's just for a couple of hours at a time, and that's hard for me. I mean, especially kind of running this program by myself for the last several years. I very much prided myself on being available to anybody, everybody, all the time. But, as things are more established and people have other avenues and people have numbers and other people to call if there's an emergency now, I can turn my phone off, even if it's just for a couple of hours. And it is amazing what a couple of hours, twice a week or whatever, will do when you don't hear the phone, when you're not checking the phone, when you're not checking your watch, when you're just a normal human. So that's awesome. And then I also really had to work on not being a perfectionist. And so I imagine that a lot of people here, especially the women on this panel, have probably dealt with that at some point. I mean, we're all obviously very high achieving and have a lot going for us, and that's great. But sometimes you have to realize that, like, even if you just wake up and exist and do something fun or do some or even if it's not anything fun, but I mean you don't have to perform every single day all the time. It's okay to just have a blah or a medium day and not beat yourself up about it. So that's been a huge thing for me. Like I can have a lazy, we call it a couch trot day and not beat myself up now. I can enjoy my Netflix instead of feeling guilty. So that's made a big difference for me.
I know I'm the same.
Juliana, I think that is awesome. The last thing specifically about not beating ourselves up about it, because I know, like you said, we're all aiming for the skies and we're trying to do so much and expect so much is expected of us in this
Yes.
industry, in home, in just life in general, that I could sit on my couch and I could see two laundry loads just that needs to be
Mhm.
folded or put up. But I taking the time just to not even pay attention to that and have a medium day or a butt day or couch rot day. I
Mhm.
love that so much.
I've got to where I can enjoy them now. Used to, I would feel nervous or I would feel anxious or I would feel guilty or I would feel, like there's so much I
Yeah.
need to do. And now I can look at the laundry like you're talking about and just laugh and be like, I will see you tomorrow. Not
It'll be
today.
there when you come to it.
Yep, exactly.
I do the same thing though. I feel guilty for like sitting on the sofa and just watching TV. I think I need to get up and do something, and then I make myself go and sit back down, and I just find a series and just binge it all day long. Probably eat a little bit too much too, but that's okay.
I
That's
just
what
want to I just want to know what it feels like to turn off my phone.
Just try it. Just try it. And it's very nerve-wracking. So for me, honestly, I had to like, okay, I'm gonna try turning my phone off. I'm gonna turn it off for 30 minutes and then I'll turn it back on because I mean, we kind of have that panicky feeling now of like, well, what if people can't get in touch with me? Or what if something happens? Or what if they need me? And I mean, I'm still kind of practicing. I've never turned it off for a whole day or anything before, but, little bits at a time. And you realize that the world will be okay if you take a nap, you know?
Got it. I'll get there one day. I think
Yeah.
I have separation anxiety. So it's
I know. All right. So obviously, you're in a profession where, we as women often carry both professional and personal caregiving roles, right? So what boundaries or leadership habits do you guys have that has helped protect your own wellness while still showing up strong for others? So we just talked about what helps fill your cup and some of the best practices. So what boundaries do you set as a leader or a leader in the industry that's helped protect your own wellness while, still being there for everybody else, right?
Well, I'll start. Clearly, it's not turning off my phone. So that's something I can work toward. But I am very intentional about trying to leave work at work. So when I'm at work, I try to complete all my tasks. I don't try to bring anything home with me where I have to come in and do anything work related from home. So I do try to separate that way. I delegate as much as I can. That was a big, big, big thing for me is letting go and allowing the people that are in other positions to do their jobs. And that was actually a big push from them telling me to let them do it. And so that was something that I learned. And I can say, even though I joke about not turning my phone off, I can actually turn my phone off. I can actually leave the country and not worry about what's going on at the 911 center because I know that the team that I have in place can handle whatever happens. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've done to actually be able to have some level of work-life balance is to let people do their jobs and also let them know that it's okay to make a mistake. So we all made mistakes as we um, went through our careers, and it's okay for them to make a mistake. But they said, did anybody die? Probably not. So we can get past it, and they've learned a lot, and they appreciate being able to step into that role and do what needs to be done. And they do a phenomenal job when I'm not there. So I can say that's probably the biggest thing. And then when I'm home, I'm home. I'm not the executive director when I'm home. My husband's a fire captain. He's not the captain when he's home. We're just regular old people that do the same thing you all do, look at laundry and laugh, and all the kids are gone. So we really suck at everything else around housekeeping. And then we pick a day and we decide, okay, let's get everything done. So we do value that time together, and I absolutely love binge watching Netflix shows, which is probably why a lot of stuff doesn't get done. So
That Desiree, what you said is a lot of kind of what I was going to say. A little bit of setting boundaries for myself to show that that is okay. It is healthy to be able to step away. And it does kind of tag onto the previous question and the answers, but not responding to emails 24/7, even though you have it in your phone and it's a one sentence response. If you do that, you're setting that expectation. And the people who work for you may think, oh, well, I need to be doing that as well. And we want to foster a relationship of healthy balance. And I think setting those boundaries by blocking off the time that you won't be communicating with people. When I got hired here at the board, my boss told me, she said, you're not in a 911 center anymore. And so everything is not emergent, So it's the closest alligator to the boat sometimes is what we kind of talk about. And I don't mean don't respond to people, but I think it is healthy to say this is my off time because that's showing your people that it is okay to step away and have that boundary. But what you said, Desiree, is so important because how do you do that? How do you let yourself do that if you have not empowered your people to make decisions and seen and shown them that they have the power to be in charge of sorts when you're not there? And so I think, doing that and then showing your people that you take time off, use your vacation time, step away, and let those other people that you're training to replace you, because essentially that's what you're doing in work, right? Is you're training the people eventually to replace you and to do your job. That's how the whole cycle works, right? And so, letting them take over some of that control, those are, I think, really good, healthy boundaries to put in place. And then the people who work for you don't expect that from you and don't think they need to be 24/7 accessible.
I think somebody just dropped that in the chat, just saying, it's just really difficult, in
Yeah.
public safety because you feel like that you've got to be available 24/7 and they can't imagine turning their phone off, right?
I thought about this when I think I don't remember who was saying it, but if you absolutely could not do that, what about like a do not disturb option where the only people who could come through your phone are the people that would be reaching out to you in an absolute emergency? So you've got a little bit of a balance, like understanding that there are so many people that have such responsibility that you need to be able to be reached. But if you could set those settings for do not disturb or work or however you want to set it, where only this notification or this person would come through, maybe that's a step in that direction.
Yeah, I
Abby
kind of want to piggyback off of that. Oh, sorry.
No, Abby, she loves that favorite setting where it's that
Oh.
do not disturb setting.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback off of that because I guess my answer for this question, maybe not so much a boundary, but learning how to delegate. Learning how to delegate things to other people, and being okay with how they do them. So that's another part of it, but delegating responsibilities, delegating a couple of days, where this person is on call instead of you or something like that. So, and when I read the comment about, how are we supposed to turn our phone off? I can't imagine doing that when I'm supposed to be on call, that I totally get that. So, find a person, even somebody that you supervise or whatever that can alternate with you. And even if you start that with just 8 hours a month, like 8 hours on a Saturday, this one day a month, this person is going to be who people call, so that you can have a break. You can have a break. And then another thing that I do in order to be able to do that is you have to do things kind of proactively. So like when I want to go on a vacation, I have to remember to email all my different people and text all my different chiefs and all this kind of stuff to tell them, hey, I'm going to be out of town for these, 3, 4, 5 days. If you need something, call this person. And then I have an agreement with this person. Like, I mean, if it's an absolute emergency, sure, I'll do whatever I can. But, for the normal day-to-day stuff that I do through my program, like somebody else can handle it for a couple days. So I'm not leaving anybody hanging, but I still get a break. And it narrows the amount of people that have access to me 24/7 down from like 1,000 to 2. So it's not necessarily just black or white. It's figuring out a way to make it work for everybody.
Yeah, and I'll say that also goes back to just delegation and letting people feel comfortable with people. So I have the chief that calls me and the CAO calls me, but if I don't answer, they're gonna call my second automatically in command. They're gonna call the two other deputy directors because they trust that when I'm not here, they're the people that sit in for me. So if they need something I don't answer, then these are the people that you call. And it's okay to go see a movie. I'll text everyone and say, hey, I'm going to see a movie. I'll be unavailable for about 2 hours. If you need something, call Lisa, call Ryan, because I'm going to sit down and enjoy this movie. So just simple things like that. And that all leads back to allowing your people to be the second in command and do the things that they do and stand in your place so that people feel comfortable reaching out to them and they know that you're not the only one that can help solve their problem. And I'm sorry, Michelle, go ahead.
Oh, you don't apologize to me. Yeah, I think, yeah, a lot of you've talked about things that I do as well. I think, for me as a mom, I'll kind of go the mom route since we're talking about kind of caring about our loved ones, is that you can be supportive and hold people accountable at the same time. So I have very responsible children. They're 13-year-old twins, and they, for the most part, do their own laundry. If they use a dish, they rinse it off and put it in the dishwasher. And if they're, asking me to do things that they can do themselves, I'm kind of tough. I'll say, well, I think you've got arms and legs, right? And so, I think oftentimes as moms, we are kind of given this BS cultural narrative that we do everything for our kids, and like if they don't do it, then we just do it, or if their room is messy, oh, just go to like, and do not do that, right? And I fully believe that I'm raising, and they're imperfect children. I'm not like I'm amazing, right? But I'm raising very responsible children, and it's a survival tactic in our home, right? Like they need to be able to do this stuff in order for me to have the life and career that I want, and for them to be able to be engaged in all the things that they want to be engaged in. So when they're like, I don't have time, I'm like, okay, well then you're in an after school activity, and you're a swimmer, and you're in these advanced classes, and you do band, and you do orchestra. So if you don't have that time, then something's got to give, right? But it's not, fully on me to pull all, like to, collect all the slack from that, right? So it's part of it is teaching them how to think about their time and expecting them to be functional members in my household. And that's how we keep things going. And some people are like, well, that sounds really harsh. I'm like, that's love, people, right? Like that's love, raising kids that can, be accountable and do the things that they need to do to succeed. So,
You're raising adults, not kids, right? You want to
yeah,
raise them to, and the
yeah,
same thing in your centers is you're raising these people to not be baby dispatchers, but to be
yep.
seasoned. And yeah,
100%. Yeah. So the phrase I always use is I want to be supportive and hold you accountable, right? And I do that with my kids, but I do it in the workplace all the time too, because I think we live in this culture right now where being supportive means that you will do anything that the person needs to possibly get by. But sometimes, like accountability is actually love and caring, right? Because they might lose their job, or they're not performing well, or they're having other issues. And so I think trying to toe that line between being um, supportive while also accountable is really helpful.
I love that. And just one more thing on the mom aspect, like you were talking about. I had to learn how to tell my kids no too. Like on a bad day or a hard day, a stressful day, which I'm sure all of y'all can relate to. Like it is okay for us to come home and for me to say, I'm going in my room. I'm going to take a bubble bath. Do not come in here for 30 minutes. Give me 30 minutes, whatever. Don't open my door for 30 minutes unless you are bleeding or whatever. It's okay to tell them no too, even, because you have to take a minute for yourself, but that's also teaching them to be responsible and, to figure out something to do for themselves for 30 minutes. So, yeah, I agree with that too.
All of this. I'm learning so much. And I learned that I should have done things a little bit differently with my own kids, right? So, let's see. What's next? Okay. So you guys working with first responders, um, as you know, is around mental health, it's not easy. So what are some of the ways that you've helped reduce that stigma and make it safer for people to talk about stress and trauma and burnout?
I'll jump in real quick, and then I won't be quiet, but I'll try. I just tell people it's human, right? Like when you're experiencing distress in reaction to another human being's suffering, that's human, right? And we connect the most through our suffering. And we are, even if you don't like people anymore, you're still biologically wired to be social, right? So having a strong distress reaction to others' suffering is normal and it's human. And thank God you haven't completely lost your empathy. So I just try to like really normalize that having strong reactions it makes sense and it's adaptive and it's actually quite cool.
I think, I mean, this is something people say all the time, right? Normalize the conversation around mental health and around the culture. But I would say that, when I'll use this example, this jacket and suit, I have a suit, and it is this periwinkle color, and I loved it. It was like one of my first suits I bought when I started at the office. And more people stop and say, "Where'd you get that suit? Where'd you get that suit? I really like that color." And when you're asked where you get something, you're like, "Oh gosh, I got it at Dillard's. It was this, and it was on sale, and blah 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 blah." Why don't we talk about this same thing when you're sitting in your center or when you're talking to someone? When you sprain your ankle, you tell people how you sprained it and how the doctor fixed it, right? So why not talk about what's going on in your head? All those things that you should be sharing, because I think the one person that's sitting in next to you, or the five people that you're having a conversation with, and you're really open about it, it opens up the door for everyone to also be open about it, right? Like when you talk about being a mom, I think that, we all learn as our kids get older. Well, I wish I'd done this differently, or if I'd done this. But at some point, I remember feeling this, I don't have to be strong, and I don't always have to be, upbeat and all of those things. I can tell my kids, Mommy had a hard day. I am very sad about something. And that's okay, because I think as parents or leaders, when you share that you've had this experience or you're going through this, it opens the door for everyone else to do the same.
And I'll agree with the transparency with our teams, especially working in 911. I know when I started in 1998, we were told, suck it up. If you did have feelings or express any feelings, then, you were looked at as being weak. I grew up with a tough dad, so I don't really show emotion much, which I don't know. I'll probably end up sitting on somebody's chair one day. But I don't remember a lot from working in 911. But I do, one of the things that our agency started this year that I thought was phenomenal is mandatory wellness checks. And so every year, every dispatcher, every firefighter, everyone that works in public safety has to attend a wellness check. And it's really eye-opening because people that have never sat down and talked to someone has come and said, "Hey, it wasn't so bad. And now I think I'm going to go talk to a therapist." And so I think that's one of the major things that we've done to kind of get rid of the stigma of actually talking to someone, is exposing people to being able to have access to someone and knowing what that means, and not having their own idea and saying that it doesn't work or it doesn't help. We also have our care team. And so one of the things that we do outside of checking on you, just if you had a traumatic call. So a lot of times we focus on, oh, they took a bad call and blah, 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 blah. But sometimes it's the personal that's the issue. And so when we know that there's something personal going on, if there's a death in your family, if you're ill, things like that, you're going to normally hear from me directly. You'll hear from someone from my team. We're going to check on you. We'll come to your house. We'll bring you food. We come to the hospital. The chief reaches out. He has a certain day that he reaches out to everyone and just checks to see how you're doing, even if it's not you directly, it could be your family. But just the idea or the thought of telling people to leave their problems at the door when they come in, that is no longer acceptable, and no one can actually do that. And so we do those things. And then I also have a very open door policy. It's probably too open. Anyone that's come to my office will know, even if I close my door, people will still knock on the door, or they'll open, "Hey, are you busy?" But I mean, it's a great thing because people feel comfortable just coming in, sitting down, and having those conversations. And so it gives us some level of insight as to what they're dealing with on a personal level, or, "Hey, I took this call," or it can be something great like, "Hey, I passed my test." But I think establishing those relationships with people up front before something happens is key to them being and feeling comfortable having a conversation with you, and then building trust. So what people tell you should stay. between you and that person. So the moment that someone comes to you and tells you something and it gets out on the floor or someone else repeats it, the trust is gone. And it's not just gone between you and that person, it's probably gone forever. And the next leader will have to fight hard to get that trust back because now people feel like I can't go to leadership because they're just going to tell my business. And so I think those things all together help us. We're not perfect at it, but we're working to get better.
Great insight.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear of lots of other places having wellness checks and something. So I've got a couple of things here. I'm in a little bit of a different position, I guess, than Laura and Desiree. So with all of the departments that I work in, I concentrate heavily on education, prevention, things like that. So a lot of time in departments classes and giving out information and sending people to this and teaching and normalizing conversations around mental health. But I also found that approaching it from a very like physiological and almost a neurological standpoint really fits with this population because in some of the classes that I teach, I can explain things in a way that really help people be able to grasp that, after 20 years in a stressful career, having anxiety is the equivalent of having a sprained ankle after you've been running around the bases for 20 years. So being able to explain to people and help them see that your brain is a body part just like any other part of your body. And when it operates in a certain way for so long, parts of it become damaged. And I think so if it's a physical ailment, just like anything else, that right there eliminates a lot of the stigma. Now, obviously, like I said, it takes, me being in a position where I can go in and teach things, but dig into it. If that's something that you're interested in or your department doesn't do, dig into it, look it up. I mean, figure out. There's so much research on how working in a high stress environment affects the brain, and changes the chemistry and the function and the neuroplasticity and all kinds of things. So that's probably my favorite part. But then also, again, like the preventative aspect, wellness checks and spending time with people so that I'm not a complete stranger if they do need to call, so spending time in the departments. But now, and then I also obviously, try to be very honest about what the reality of things are. I mean, all of the last probably decade or so of where you can definitely see the culture changing around mental health in first responder agencies, but we've got a lot of catching up to do. So, being trying to explain things in a way that people understand, but also understanding that there's a lot of those people who are struggling already, because they've worked in an environment for so long. But I guess one of the best things for me is like I can think of, I don't know, probably a dozen examples or so of departments where I work and you really getting to know people and, getting, becoming really familiar with, especially some of the older guys. And I have a couple of chiefs that I'm thinking of in particular right now who have been first responders longer than I have been alive. Okay. And to be able to sit down with them and teach them, go through a class and teach them these things and explain things and have them look at me and say, I wish I'd have known that 40 years ago. I wish I'd have known that 30 years ago. Like to see it click and they're the ones that are in charge, like that trickles down. So I try to just spend a lot of time educating and teaching rather than just waiting until something's wrong and trying to help, which obviously I do that too. But I think a lot of it is about education. The more you know, the less of a surprise it is.
That's some great insights, Julianne. Wait, anybody else want to comment on that? Okay. So what are some of the practical daily habits that people in high stress professions such as 911 can implement to support their wellness? So, mentally, physically, and emotional. What are some of those best practices that you found that really works, that's beneficial?
I'll say just reflecting on the positive aspects of the day. So, our center takes 1.3 million calls a year. Um, average of about, I think last Saturday we took over 4,000 calls in one day. And so, just kind of having them to reflect on the positive things, because sometimes they just think about the negative. So we look for things to give kudos for. We look for things to say that you did a great job on this, because they're getting beat down, beat down, beat down all day with 911 calls. And so, one of the practical daily habits that we have is just looking for wins. How can we say kudos? And even though last week when we took those 4,000 calls, we got nowhere near the national standard. But instead of telling my team, hey, we didn't meet the standard today or whatever, I said, thank you because I know that you all worked very hard today. Like, I know 4,000 calls is not our average. It was not expected. But apparently a lot of people like to celebrate Halloween in the city. And so we got a lot of calls that we don't normally get. But versus beating them down, we went through and I pulled how many calls did we take over the weekend? Over 11,000 calls for the weekend. And so I thank them for coming in, for showing up, and for being there to answer those 11,000 plus calls. It didn't matter how quickly we answered them. What you did was nothing short of amazing, because you came in and you showed up and you did what we expect you to do. And so, that's one of the main things that we do probably on a daily basis to kind of assist our 911 call takers and supervisors, is just look for wins.
I'm going to jump in really quick because I have a super quick, this is probably the only question that I can answer quickly, list. And I actually have these printed on little cards that I give out to people sometimes. So I have a list of things that I ask people to do on a daily basis. Take a good vitamin, methylated, if you can get that. Drink something once a day that has electrolytes in it. So one bottle of water with stuff put in it or whatever. So a vitamin, electrolytes. Figure out how to sleep. Do not sacrifice your sleep for other stuff. Try to do one thing a day that's social, even if that's just send one text message to a friend outside of work, like something that's just social. Try to do that once a day. Um, Use a sun lamp. So if you can't, I'm huge on sunshine. So if you can't go outside, if you are stuck in dispatch or you're on night shift and y'all work in like caves, it seems like all the dispatch places that I know that I go into, they're like caves and it's dark. Use a sun lamp. You can get one on Amazon for $30. Use a sun lamp and turn it on whenever you need to wake up for a few minutes. And then spend 15 minutes a day doing something that is just funny or creative. I don't care. I'm a huge fan of funny cat videos, so I will sit in my car and watch funny cat videos for a few minutes before I need to go home or whatever. So, vitamins, electrolytes, sleep, sun, and something a few minutes a day that's the opposite of stress. So, something funny or something creative. And that's my list that I tell everybody to do.
I think that's awesome. And I'm going to be brief because we don't have much time, but all those little things help prevent the big crash, right? Because the ounce of prevention is worth more than a pound of cure. I think that's the saying that's older, but it's true when you're attacking those little things, just small things. That's a vitamin a day. Like, come on, everybody can do that. Like those little things, even if you start with one of those things, like, building up, if you want to have those January 1, New Year's resolutions that you want to work out, rather than saying, I'm going to be at the gym 2.5 hours every day, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do a mile and a half. I'm just going to walk for 5 minutes. Like just doing the small things, because the small things end up being the big things and they make the big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think just to piggyback off that, I always tell people don't let your self-care goals compete with each other. So, I think again, we're always thinking, oh, I'm going to meditate for 20 minutes. I'm going to get hours of sleep. I'm going to eat healthy meals and blah, blah. It's like ain't no one got time for that, right? So, Pick one. It doesn't have to be the same one every day. And then, I think so. Just kind of picking one per day. And I kind of touched on this earlier. Don't let them compete. And then, don't practice self-compassion and grace, right? I think that's the biggest one for me is that we are fallible, we are human, we live in a society that is kind of impossibly difficult with all the competing demands, I think particularly for women. And so leaning heftily into extending grace and compassion for yourself is probably one of the best things you can do. And guess what? It's free. Like you don't have to pay for it or plan for it. You can just sit in moments of self-compassion and grace.
On that, Michelle, because that's one of the things I think, Juliana said, was just like I have a tendency to be a perfectionist. And so when I fail, then I'm hardest on myself, right? And I will give grace and compassion to others, but myself, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna sit on my sofa this weekend and I'm gonna eat bonbons and Doritos and wallow in my misery because I made a mistake, right? So I love that self-compassion and grace. We could all do better at that, right? Well, do we have time for one last question? What if we let the audience ask a question? Does anybody out there have a question you want to drop in the chat for these ladies? You got them here for a few more minutes. No? Okay, then I'm gonna ask it.
I would say I have a question. I mean, I'm not like one of the audience of, with Virtual Academy, but I have a question if we can throw it out there.
Go for it, Abby.
I like Michelle was saying earlier, I have never been a first responder. I've never worked in necessarily that field. But I know personally, like a lot of what you guys have touched on today, for me, I find myself overwhelmed very quickly. And overwhelmed kind of leads to a little bit of task paralysis. And so I'd be curious to know what your guys' thoughts are on like overcoming task paralysis. Because I was talking to Justin last night and I was like, my kitchen is a nightmare mess, but I don't want to touch it because the thought of it overwhelms me. But it's, something that I know I'm like, oh, I need to get done. What would be your guys' thoughts on like overcoming that?
Start small. Tell yourself you're going to work on it for 5 minutes. We know that, the biggest issue with procrastination and task paralysis and procrastination are a little bit different, right? But, people wait for motivation to come and it doesn't. So we often experience motivation by getting started, right? It's like when I have, students, at NIU and they're like, I just can't get started on the paper. Just write the first paragraph, right? Just open and write your first paragraph. And that is oftentimes naturally rewarding and will motivate future continued work, right? So I think it's when we see, super messy kitchen or a big paper dissertation or whatever it is, we can become very overwhelmed. And so just starting with something small, setting a very small goal, can be really, really helpful. And then the other piece of that, kind of backing up a little bit, is sometimes we go from I'm fine to holy moly, I am completely overwhelmed. And I think that's oftentimes because, also in our society, we've become quite disconnected from our own bodies and listening to our own internal cues. And so, if we can develop better mindfulness or better awareness, sometimes we can notice when we're getting there before we're actually there. And especially for, I think, first responders, I think that can be hard because, especially for 911, you're like plugged in, and sometimes you have to learn how to deny your basic bodily needs. You can become kind of disconnected with paying attention to your own internal cues. That can come at some cost, right? Because when we're not paying attention to our inner cues, we can go from feeling like we're fine to all of a sudden being like super overwhelmed. So those would be the two things that I say.
I completely agree, Michelle, the small things. So when I see that, if I do one little small thing, I feel so accomplished and then it gives me the motivation. I think of Dave Ramsey, if any of y'all know them and him and the financial part of his job, I guess. But paying that tiny credit card off first, you're like, oh, I paid the tiny one off, and it gives you that motivation to keep going. But what I will tell you, and I have done this myself, I'm not a great housekeeper. When I do it, it's awesome, but when I don't, it's not. And I have done this, and some probably will do it again. When I've gotten so overwhelmed, I call my people that always show up for me. And I have a friend that will come over and we will just turn music on, and she's like, okay, where does this need to be hung? Or what do we, and it's like you just have someone in the room with you, and it kind of helps you get out of that funk. And having your people outside of work or people from work doesn't matter, I think, but having people that really help support you when you are in need. And it's hard to ask someone as a grown adult. My house has gotten out of control because I have been traveling so much, and I have 5 suitcases I'm living out of, and I don't know where to start. And if I can't take my first step, I'll just call somebody. And it's been such a godsend to have people in my life that support me in all the ways, even if that means folding laundry. So
That's the two tasks.
I
Unloading
want to
the
add to that super quick. I have a game that I play with myself, especially on really, really bad days. I play Race the Timer. So, like, especially like on just a couch right day, where I don't want to do anything, I will like turn a timer on for 5 minutes or 10 minutes and be like, okay, you're going to get up and do as many dishes as you can or hang up as many pieces of laundry as you can in 5 minutes. And when this timer goes off, you're out, you're done, but it very much break it into little bitty parts, like Dr. Lily and other people were saying.
Let me say this really quickly. I'm so sorry. I got this great advice, and that's similar to that. When my kids were little and my husband would come home and nothing had been done because I was at home because I was taking care of kids and I just didn't want to do it and I was overwhelmed and all this. My Sunday school teacher told me, she said, 30 minutes before he's supposed to be home, 30 minutes, start cleaning your sink. Just do it for 30 minutes. You'll be amazed at what you can do that 30 minutes before he gets home. And then boom, like then you get going and you get it going. Anyway, that was some great advice for me, and I started doing it and it worked.
That's the two biggest things. I hate to unload and load the dishwasher, and I doing laundry, folding it, but putting the laundry away. It will sit on my chair in my bedroom. I'll just move it from my bed and I'll say, okay, I'm gonna put it up tomorrow. And the same thing with the dishes. But what I've learned too is what I'll do is I will unload and put all the dishes on the counter. And then I'll put dishes in the sink. I'll put the dishes from the sink in there and close it up. And then I'll come back later and I'll put those dishes up. So I break it into small tasks, but I have to be motivated to do it. So it has to be like if it smells really bad or I got company. But breaking it
Start
up.
having a standing date where someone comes over every day, the same day of the week, and you got to have it clean before they get there.
Well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us. Our third annual Gold Flame Conference. You always show up and help us make this such a success. And if you logged in this morning, you'll know that this time next year, our Gold Flame Conference will be in person in Tennessee. We're having a users conference, and it'll be in November in the Nashville area. So just keep an eye out for all of that. Details coming very soon. You
Thank
guys,
you, guys. Thank you for having
thanks
us.
so much. We really
Thank you so much for having
Thank
me.
you.
Bye.
I enjoyed hearing from everybody else too. So thank
Me
you.
too. I was taking notes from you guys
Me
so that I
too,
could
me
do
too.
it.
I learned,
Yeah.
I learned so much.
Love
Thank
it.
you.